I thought I'd start my Best of 2025 series with a podcast episode that I guested on recently. Melanie Campbell is the host of the Holistic Women's Business Podcast, and we talked about social media and the energy drain it can cause you. I really believe that creating the right content for your business isn't just about being seen. It's really about building genuine, heartfelt connection with people who are aligned with you. In this episode, we chat about how you can use blogs, podcasts, and videos in your Heart-led business as a purposeful and sustainable strategy instead of just relying on social media. We also touch on why it's important to create a core content strategy that really aligns with your values, time and energy, and how to get started. I've left Melanie's intro in the recording to this episode, so if you're looking for a new podcast to explore these holidays, then head on over to the Holistic Women's Business Podcast. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Holistic Women's Business Podcast for soul-inspired women in business over 40, just like you. I'm your guide, Melanie Campbell. Episode 74, How to Use Authentic Core Content to Build Trust and Connection with Your Ideal People Without Social Media. For many of us with heart-led businesses, social media can often feel draining because it doesn't align with our values. And if you're feeling that too, then today's conversation is to inspire you to say no to social media and focus on sharing meaningful core content instead, if that's what feels more aligned for you. So my special guest today is the lovely Mel Daniels, who has been on this podcast before, and I'm very excited to have her back again.
Oh my goodness, Melanie, thank you so much for having me.
So Mel is a heart-led content strategist, and something that she says that I really love is that you don't need all the people, you need the right people, which means that content isn't just about being seen. It's about building genuine trust and connection with the people who are aligned for you. So that's why today we're going to be chatting about what authentic core content is and why it can be a more meaningful strategy for creating connection, especially when you don't have a lot of time and energy to spare. And I think before we get into that, we'll also talk about why we're talking about this, because that comes back to that idea of being seen, because there is so much pressure on us as business owners to be seen on social media all the time. And there are all these things out there saying that you have to post a certain number of times a week. And I know for me, even just thinking about doing that is really draining, which is why I've never done it. But then there's that social media guilt. Like you feel like, oh, I'm not promoting my business because I'm not on there. And that's why for me at the beginning of this year, I decided, well, I actually don't want to be on there. And I'm just going to choose not to focus on that. So what are your thoughts, Mel? How are you feeling about social media?
My goodness me, I love this conversation so much, Melanie, because I think it's one that needs to be heard by so many people, especially those who are in your world who consider themselves heart-led entrepreneurs, because social media can feel like a place that is very hard and very draining for us.
Yeah.
Me personally, I have decreased the amount of time that I've spent on social media this year. And that's because of my season of life right now. I don't have the energy and I just don't feel like participating in social media. And quite frankly, I think that my time has other priorities as well, like connecting with my family, my teens, my hubby, my dog, and sleep as well. Like all of these things are priorities for me over performing or being on a platform that I don't have the heart to be in right now. And I also think as an empathetic human, which also so many of your listeners
Yeah.
are, it's draining. I
Yeah.
feel a lot of emotions when I'm on socials and a range of emotions as well, you know, from being annoyed to being excited to being entertained to being despondent and not feeling any hope. And I really feel those feelings hard. And I know that your listeners do as well. So when we are spending time on a platform that is just draining us, then it's really, really hard. And quite frankly, I'd also rather be doing things that are good for me as a person and bring me joy as well. So I don't feel like you or any of your listeners have to be on social media.
Yes, I love all of that. And that's exactly why I have you on here to have this conversation because I know that we're both so aligned in choosing things that actually feel good. I think the thing that happened for me was that earlier this year when I went away overseas for 6 weeks, I didn't go on Instagram in that whole time.
Wow.
And when I got back, I realized, I actually don't miss this because it's not just posting. There's no point just posting if you're not going to then be on there and engaging with the comments as well. So there's not just the time to post, there's also the time to be on there and responding to if people comment on your posts, but also commenting on other people's posts. And it just takes up a whole lot of time. And yeah, I was feeling the same. I was feeling quite drained every time I went on there. I think you said before about the performing part
Mm.
as well. There's that pressure to be performing and to be creating content the way that the social media platform says that we have to. I think that was the final straw for me. I think Instagram was changing the image sizes or something, but I just thought, so does that mean I have to go back and change them all? Or then they're changing settings. Does that mean now I have to go in and look at that? And I thought, you know what? I'm not interested in doing that. I would
Mm.
rather put my time and energy into this podcast, which is something I really enjoy.
Mm.
And this is something that to me doesn't feel like hard work because it's something that I enjoy and I get to talk to wonderful women like you.
And that is the joy of content, to
Yeah.
really tune in to your strengths and what lights you up and really go with that. And I think that you've made some really important and interesting points there around feeling like we're always playing catch up,
Mm,
because what worked on social media last month, last week, even yesterday may not be what's working right now and in the future. And as solopreneurs, we just don't have the time to be able to understand all of these different algorithms. And if someone tells me, one more hack to
mm.
get around the algorithm, I think that I will just lose my mind because
Yes.
it's not about trying to hack algorithms. It's really about creating content that you really enjoy. The other thing that I really loved, Melanie, was you said that you went away on holidays. So you had kind of almost like an enforced sabbatical in
Yeah.
terms of the platform. And what an amazing opportunity for you to come to that realization that social media was not the place that was lighting you up. That was not the
Mm.
place where you wanted to be. And even if this conversation helps one person to feel like they have the permission to not do the things that we're constantly told that we need to do in a certain way in order to be successful, then I'm going to be a very happy person.
Yeah. Me too. So let's now get into what today's about, which is alternatives to social media. And that's where we focus on core content. So before we do get into that, I'm going to read out your bio just to remind people of who you are and what you do. So, Mel Daniels is a heart led content strategist for big hearted women in business. Her specialty is helping you grow your business with authentic content that feels easy because it aligns with your personality, your energy, and your resources. Her superpower is creating practical strategies that help you pull your valuable content ideas out of your head and share them in a way that shows your unique value and builds connection with your ideal people.
Wow, thank you so much for that gift of a beautiful bio, Melanie. You have the amazing ability to really understand and get to the core and the heart and the soul of people and what they do and what they're here for. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's something I love doing. It's why I love to write a bio for all of my guests. I think too, we often can't see ourselves that clearly.
Yeah,
So it is nice to have someone else reflect back to us who we are and what our gifts are.
thank you.
So the first question that I want to ask you then is what are core content platforms and why are they a more meaningful way to build genuine trust and connection than focusing on social media?
Mm. So the simple one sentence answer to this is essentially core content is a blog, a podcast, or a video, and it's the centerpiece of your content ecosystem. But the longer version or the longer answer to that question is that core content is really the soul of
Mm,
your content. And if you think of a spider web as an example, it's the very center, and it's all of these beautiful connections come out from the center to form this entire system that really works together to attract the right people into your world as well. And I also like to explain core content as being a really meaty, binge worthy piece of content
mm,
that someone can use to really get to know you, your message, your thought leadership, and just your uniqueness, because you are a unique human being that has unique ideas and unique values and unique ways of presenting that to the world. And it's really different, I think, in that way to social media, which tends to be, like a glorified highlight reel of someone's life or business. And social media is really the place for entertainment, I think, at the
mm,
moment, rather than connection.
mm.
And I think about if you come across someone that you really resonate with, that you love the kind of things that they're talking about, and you want to consume absolutely everything that they know, I think that core content, that blog, podcast, or video, is the perfect way to do this. And I'm sure that you see this with your podcast
Mm.
as well, that there's often these times or these spikes where someone has actually like downloaded the entire library of your episodes. And I love seeing that with my
Yeah.
podcast as well, because I know that someone has really resonated with something that I've said and it's really struck a chord, and they want to understand absolutely everything about what I talk about. And I just absolutely love that. And I often tell this story, Melanie, of how I came across a woman on Instagram. And it was one post, and it was just like, wow, it hit me. And I
Mm.
can't even remember what made me stop to actually read the contents of a post, because usually, you just scroll, and if something visually appeals to you, then you might stop. But it was about an interesting perspective on the symptoms of a certain medical
Mm.
condition that one of my family members has. So it really resonated with me. And I went to her bio to find out where I could learn more, and there was no links at all. I was just so desperate to find out more information that I actually did the detective work,
Mm.
and I went and found her website, but there was no blog, there was no podcast. I searched on YouTube, like I did all of the things, but because I didn't have the opportunity to really get to know her and really get to understand her perspective on this particular idea, I walked away never thinking of her again. Well, I have thought of her again, but she's never come across my feed. So I guess that the moral of this story is that socials shouldn't necessarily be the main gig when it
Mm.
comes to your content. They need to be kind of like the sideshow, the support
Yeah.
act, because it's the core content that is really going to take your ideal client on that journey with you from not knowing anything about you to becoming that raving paying client.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's so important, and it's something that I often talk about as well. I think too, coming from a background of website design, I'm always trying to get people to really focus on having core content as part of their website so that people can find out more about who they are and connect with them, and just start a conversation as well. I
Yeah,
just,
absolutely.
yeah.
So it's not just the about me page where
Mm.
people are going to get to know you. It's
Yeah.
really that the core content, that meaty content, that they're really going to get the sense of your perspective. So I think that that's really, really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that I love about core content as well is that you have control over how you want to deliver that. So whether that is going to be on a podcast. So for this podcast, I choose to only do audio. Some people like to do video, or they like to do both. So then there's that option, or writing a blog, but you can choose how you want to do it. And also it can be in any length that you want it to be. It's not like on social media where there are very set things about how many words the caption can be, also how many words you're allowed to put in your bio as well. So it's actually much harder to write something short than it is to write something long. So when you have to try and compress yourself into this short format content, it can be really difficult. And that can often mean that you lose the essence of what you're trying to say. And that's something that I really love about core content is that it means that you have the opportunity to fully express yourself and the things that are really important to you and to use that to really connect with people that are aligned with you, that share your values and your purpose. And it's just a really great way to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I love how you've just brought up the point about it doesn't have to look a certain way.
Mm.
And that's the beauty of this. It can just be what you want it to be and what you are called to actually share in that moment that you're recording, that you're writing, that you're videoing, whatever it is. Core content has this ability to be so expansive and amplifying and quite frankly, it lives forever as well. Like social
Yes.
media just appears for a moment in time and will likely never be shown again. Whereas
Mm.
core content has this ability to live on because people can find it through different ways and different pathways.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because there was something that
Mm.
you said in one of your newsletters. You said something about that some content plants seeds that bloom later, and patience is often part of the process. And I really loved that because I feel like that is the perfect way to describe the contrast between core
Mm.
content and social media, which is what you've just talked about, is that social media is really just in that moment and then it's gone. I mean, it might stay for a day, but then that's it. Whereas your core content can live on for years and years. People can discover something 5 years on from when you first put it out there, and it's still something that can be just as relevant to them finding it 5 years later as it can be on the day that you put it there. Whereas social media, it's not going to bring up posts that you've put there years ago and remind people of anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we can have all of the algorithm changes in the world on socials, but if your core content is, planted and nurtured, it's gonna survive that test of time. So yeah, it's really interesting how core content is the way that we create longevity with our
Mm,
content rather than socials, like you said, that are here for a moment in time.
yeah. Okay. So the next thing I want to ask you is then what are your favorite core content platforms and how do you use them in your business? Especially during those times when you don't have a lot of time and energy. So this can tie into your concept of minimum viable content, which I really love as well.
It kind of does, yes. So this is really interesting as well. It really reflects how we change as people
Mm,
and our focus change, and therefore our content can change, and that's okay. It's so okay.
yeah.
So when I first started my business, I loved writing blogs. It's all I did. I was good at it. I enjoyed it. I could write them quickly and easily. And I did it about 5 years before I started my podcast in 2023, I think it was. So now I love my podcast and I use that to reimagine it into a blog as well. So I get the best of both worlds from
Yeah.
my podcast. And I know that in the future, my time, my energy, and resources are going to be able to change. And I will be able to then utilize the video. You spoke about how you
Mm,
don't utilize the video from your
yeah.
podcast. And isn't that great? Because that
Yeah.
suits you.
Yep.
But because I know that I want to add that to my suite, to my content ecosystem, I'll be doing that. And so for me, it's really a question of whether I'm enjoying it at the
Mm,
time. Am I enjoying creating this core piece of content?
mm,
If not, should I be doing something else? And if I have the time, energy, and resources for something, which really, like you said, goes back to the concept of minimum viable content. So, what is the easiest way in line with my strengths that I can create content that keeps me visible, but in a way that really honors my time, energy, and resources?
mm. Yeah. Yep. I agree with all of that. And that's why I do only do audio for this
Yeah.
because I have realized that if I did do video as well, even though the video gets recorded when I'm recording these podcasts, I know that then I would need to set up the YouTube channel and I'd be fiddling about with that. And then I'd be thinking about the lighting and what I was going to wear on the recording. And I know for me that then I'd get stuck in procrastination and then nothing would get put out there. And I know that this is something that you talk about as well, is that it's better to choose what you're going to focus on and actually get it out there than procrastinating on it and, and not putting any content out there.
Yes, exactly. And I love that awareness that you have, Melanie. And I would love for people to, as they're listening to this, to bring their own awareness to the
Mm,
situation of how they create content, how they feel when they create that content as well. Because when you have that awareness, I think that it becomes easier to ditch the shoulds, to
mm,
block out that noise, and to do what really feels aligned for you and have the confidence to do that as well.
yeah.
Because it's easy for me to sit here and say, you don't have to be on social media, you don't have to do all the things when you have thousands and thousands of people telling you otherwise,
Mm,
who are telling you that you have to be on social media, you have to create reels, you have to write this in your bio, all of these shoulds that are
yeah.
thrown at you constantly. I really encourage people to take a moment to bring awareness to the fact, is this really serving my business and myself in a way
Mm,
that brings me joy?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because when you do something that you enjoy, it just makes it so much easier. It doesn't feel
Yes.
like hard work. That's why I love doing this podcast
Mm.
because to me, it doesn't feel like work. I have a system set up around that. So when I'm recording episodes, it's things that I feel really inspired to talk about. And a lot of the time that's come from conversations that I've had with either clients or other women in my networks and to choose what feels most aligned and to be able to say no to the things that don't work. But I also really like that you said that it can be hard to say no at first
Mm.
because there is so much pressure out there. And coming back to your point that you made about the content ecosystem too, is that you also have a choice around that of whether you choose to say no to social media completely and don't use it at all, or otherwise it can be a part of your content ecosystem. So that was a really good point that you raised as well, is that when you have core content you're repurposing, it makes that aspect of social media so much easier as well because you've already created the content and you're just taking a piece of that and putting that on social media instead of it being that main focus.
100%. And I am not creating any content for social media at the moment. I'm choosing to only show up a few times and for that to be reimagined content rather than content that's brand new all the time.
Mm. Oh, that's so important. And that's what made the difference for me when I did decide, okay, I'm actually not going to post on there. I'm not going to focus on that. It's amazing how much headspace that freed up.
Absolutely. It's that obligation.
Mm,
When we're creating content from a space of obligation rather than joy,
mm,
it can really make a difference to how we feel about it, but also
yeah,
how our audience receives it as
yeah.
well. I talk about that I would much rather someone come to me to work with me from a perspective of hope, from a
Mm,
perspective of wanting to be, do, or have something that I can provide to them rather than coming from a point of desperation. Like, I
mm,
think a lot of people who promote content as poking pain points, it just drives me crazy because people are coming to you then from a point of desperation where they feel like they have to be fixed rather
mm,
than imagining the possibilities of what their life could actually be after
yeah,
working with you. Huge difference.
yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah. That drives me crazy as well, and something that I often talk about too, because otherwise it is that very pushy, salesy energy. And that's something that I'm yeah, very much against.
Yeah, exactly. And I know lots of your listeners are too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also why, even with things like sales pages, I don't call them sales pages. I call them invitation pages because we
Love
always
it.
want to be inviting people to work with us. And that's the same with our content as well. I don't believe that that we need to be trying to find people's pain points and trying to, as you said, poke the pain point to try
Mm,
and convince them that they have to work with us.
mm,
It's more talking about here's how I can help, and then it's inviting someone. And if that's what they're feeling they need, then there is that natural connection. So it's more of that natural organic connection rather than that message of, or you must have this, otherwise something really
mm.
bad's going to happen to you, which is often what's out there in the marketing world. And I feel like that also very much comes into social media as well. And I think that's why I started to move away from it as well. I was starting to see more of that on the platforms rather than the connection side, which is what it was supposed to be in the first place. It was supposed to be about connecting with people,
Mm, mm.
but it became more. I felt like every time I got on there, I was just scrolling through a whole lot of sales pitches because that's what it makes us feel like we have to do. And I didn't even like consuming that. So
Mm.
so I thought, well, I certainly don't want to be adding to that noise. I would
Yep.
rather be putting something out there that's something that can be of value to people. And that's where the core content part is so important because we can be focusing on giving value.
Like 1,000 times. Yes, you've just summed it up so beautifully, I think. When we come from that space of what we love to do, then it is going to be so much easier and lighter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that leads nicely into the other thing that I really want to talk about, and that is your membership. So I am one of the members of your wonderful membership called the Content Effect to help heart led women in business to create authentic content that aligns with you, your time, energy, and resources. So, as a member myself, I think it's really important to share about your membership because if there are women out there listening to this podcast thinking, well, how do I create this core content? I need some more inspiration. I need to find out how I can create this content ecosystem. And
Mm,
your membership is such a great way to get that support. But also it's more about that heart-led support. It's not another one of these things saying you should do things a certain way. And that's why I really love your approach is that you are very much about finding what's going to work for you. So, what inspired you to create the membership in the first place? And how can it help with creating core content in a sustainable way?
mm. So the membership for me is in total alignment with my values and with my lived experience. And I know that you are so amazing at helping heart-led entrepreneurs find their offers and align them so beautifully with who they are at their core and their soul. So, two of my top three values are community and connection. So, for
Mm,
me, a membership that has a community aspect to it was an absolute no-brainer. I mean, it just fits with who I am and what I want to bring to the world. My purpose in life is around helping others and raising them up, and that
yeah.
really brings in the alignment for me. And then I've been through the feeling like I'm doing it wrong or I'm
Mm,
failing, not succeeding at business because I'm not doing things a certain way and getting the results that I wanted. It took a lot of time for me to realize that it wasn't me in the sense of how I executed things. It was more the fact that it just did not feel right for me. And I think that if I had my time over again at the beginning of my business journey, I would have been more confident to see that it's just about finding the right thing for me.
mm.
So they're probably the reasons why I started my membership in the first place. And then the other part of that question, what was it? That how it helps
Yeah,
people?
so how can it
Yeah.
help with creating core content in a sustainable way? Yeah, I know I snuck two questions in one.
You did, you did. Okay, so I think that, and perhaps you could say otherwise, I don't know, being a beautiful member of the membership, that the essence of it is giving you a framework to follow
Mm,
rather than exact steps. Because I don't prescribe to the idea of you should be doing content a certain way, it makes sense for me not to give you shoulds.
Mm,
So for me, it's really about giving you that framework to find what you love to do and then give you the support to actually be able to do that. And I think that heart-led entrepreneurs in particular are really tired. They are tired of being told what to do and
mm,
how to do it. So to give you a framework instead that you
mm,
can then apply to your own unique situation, your lived experience, your time, energy, and resources, I think is really important. So I think that's probably one way. And then the other way is, I guess, the community side of things.
mm,
So, the membership is not just about learning, it's about the connection. It's about, feeling supported to be able to experiment, to test ideas, to refine how you approach your content. And I think that it can then spark ideas
mm.
and that sharing of knowledge that you don't necessarily get when you're sitting at home by yourself and scrolling through social media and being told that you should be doing things a certain way. Just to be able to be open to other ideas and opportunities, I think is something that's rather special.
Mm. Yeah, it is. And I have experienced all of those things being in the membership.
Hey.
I think too, the framework does really spark ideas and that's something that I've found is having those resources. It's helped me to then create my own system. And that's what I do really love about your approach is that because it is a framework and it is flexible, it's then taking the pieces out of that that are going to work and then reshaping them into the right thing for each person. So obviously the way I do things is different to how you do things and to how someone else in the membership is going to do it. But all of those are the right thing because it's choosing the right things for us. And yeah, I really love that you are always encouraging of all of us and for everyone listening too to really find that path and that system that's going to work for you and to say no to those shoulds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, just as probably a final parting thought, that the most powerful content that you can create is content that is human first,
Mm,
that is heart centered, like I know your beautiful listeners
yeah.
are, and that really is in alignment with who you are as a person. That is the best content that you can possibly create.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm sure that there are lots of women listening who would love to find out more about your membership and also all of the other things that you do. So, where is the best place to find you?
Well, of course, I'm going to say my core content, which is my podcast, the Powerful Content Podcast, and also then my blogs on my website, which is Meld Business Services.
Great. All right. And I'll make sure that I put all of those links down in the show notes as well. So if anyone's listening while they're driving, don't worry. You don't have to try and write all of that down or remember it. The links will be down in the show notes. So I highly recommend getting in touch with Mel. So thank you, Mel. Thank you for being one of my returning guests today and having this conversation today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor and pleasure to have this conversation, like it is always when I speak with you, Melanie. And I just really hope that it's given someone the permission today to do content their way.
Great. Thanks, Mel. Thanks for joining me for that chat with Mel Daniels. And I hope that that's given you some inspiration about how you can use your core content as a way to connect with your aligned people instead of feeling like you have to rely on social media if that doesn't feel right for you. And if you do have any questions about anything that we talked about today, then my contact details are down in the show notes as always. So do get in touch and send me your questions. And also, I will be having Mel back on future episodes. So, if there's any other topics around content that you'd love for us to cover, then please send me those through my contact form as well. I'd love to hear from you and That way, we can plan another episode to help inspire you to create content that feels heart led and authentic to you. And I look forward to chatting with you again on the next episode. Have a great week. Bye for now.